Have you ever seen a family fall apart over something as small as envy? Now imagine that on the scale of an entire kingdom. Picture two brothers, born into royalty, raised together under the same sun, destined to lead. But when it came time to choose a king, love twisted into resentment. One brother's ambition, fueled by jealousy, ignited a fire that burned an empire to the ground. Today, we're diving deep into one of Africa's most chilling forgotten legends, where a crown, a betrayal, and a kingdom's fall became inseparable. This isn't just a story about power, it's a warning wrapped in ancient wisdom. You'll see how jealousy, left unchecked, can spread like poison, corrupting even the purest bonds. We'll follow the rise of a noble kingdom, the brotherly bond that once held it firm, and the dark turn that led to betrayal. You might think you know how this ends, but trust me, there's more to this fall than just a fight over a throne. Stick with me, and you'll discover how ambition can cost more than power. It can destroy legacy. In a land surrounded by golden plains and sacred rivers, the Kingdom of Zanbara rose like a jewel from the earth. Its people were proud, its leaders wise, and at its heart was a king who had brought peace after decades of war. King Mandari ruled not with an iron fist, but with balance. He had two sons, Tariq, the eldest, calm and composed, a thinker, and Kumo, younger by a few years, bold and impulsive, a warrior at heart. Both were loved by the people, but only one could inherit the crown. From the time they were boys, everyone could see the contrast between the brothers. Tariq would spend hours listening to elders and learning the ancient stories. Kumo, he would race through the savannah, spear in hand, chasing antelopes and earning the admiration of warriors. They were like fire and water, opposites that somehow flowed together. But when their father began to age, the question no one dared ask out loud started stirring in whispers. Who would wear the crown when King Mandari's time ended? One evening, during the Festival of Spears, King Mandari made a quiet announcement. The royal advisors, elders, and spiritual leaders had all agreed. It was Tariq who would become the next king. Kumo smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. That moment was the beginning of the end. What seemed like acceptance was actually the seed of envy, buried deep. Kumo believed strength, not wisdom, should lead a kingdom. And though he said nothing at the time, inside, his heart was setting fire to every bond he'd once shared with his brother. In the months that followed, Kumo began to change. He trained harder, but not for glory. Instead, he gathered warriors loyal to him alone. He spoke to them about a future where the strong ruled, not the soft-spoken. He called Tariq weak, a dreamer unfit for the throne. His words, wrapped in pride, infected others. The whispers in the market grew louder, the soldiers divided, and all the while, King Mandari grew more ill, unaware that his sons were preparing not for a coronation, but a war. Tariq, for his part, still believed in peace. He tried to speak with Kumo, offering to rule together, to share the burden of leadership. But Kumo laughed bitterly. "You want peace," he said, "because you're afraid of battle." And that's when the masks came off. Kumo gathered his loyal fighters and stormed the outer garrisons of the capital at night. Fires rose into the sky, and the kingdom woke to chaos. It was brother against brother, soldier against soldier. The war for Zanbara had begun, not against invaders, but from within. The fighting lasted weeks. Streets once filled with music, now echoed with screams. Sacred temples became battlegrounds. And the people, those who had once cheered both brothers, were forced to choose sides. Families were torn apart. Tariq, defending the palace with a dwindling guard, refused to leave his father's side. "I will not abandon the man who gave us everything," he said. Kumo, meanwhile, marched on with a vengeance, determined to claim the throne, no matter the cost. The once golden kingdom of Zanbara was bleeding. At the height of the battle, King Mandari died quietly in his sleep, unaware that his legacy was in ruins. The next morning, Kumo breached the palace gates. Tariq stood, unarmed, in the royal courtyard. He offered peace again, one final time. But Kumo, filled with rage and pride, struck him down. The royal blood spilled on the stone tiles beneath the throne. That moment shattered the spirit of the people. The silence that followed was heavier than the cries of war. Kumo had won the throne, but lost the kingdom. In the years that followed, Zanbara never truly recovered. Kumo ruled with iron and fear, but the trust of the people was gone. Trade crumbled, alliances faded, and whispers of rebellion never stopped. Tariq's name became legend, spoken in stories of what might have been. And Kumo, he became a king haunted by shadows, unable to silence the voice of the brother he betrayed. This is where our story truly begins, because the real lesson lies not in the rise of a king, but in the fall caused by envy, pride, and a broken bond. Years passed, but the scars remained fresh. Kumo surrounded himself with walls higher than any built before, not just stone, but emotional ones too. His court was filled with loyalists, but none dared speak truth. He outlawed stories of Tariq, destroyed carvings of his image, and punished anyone who honored his brother's name. But legends don't die so easily. In quiet corners of the land, elders whispered his story. Children lit candles in secret. The memory of the fallen prince grew stronger the more Kumo tried to bury it. With time, small villages began to rebel, not with swords, but with memory. They painted murals of Tariq on stone walls, sang songs of his wisdom during harvest festivals, and passed down his story like a sacred heirloom. The more Kumo ruled by fear, the more people longed for the peace they had lost. Secret movements grew, quiet but determined. They weren't seeking to dethrone Kumo. They wanted to remember. And in that remembrance, something powerful began to stir. A unity born not from war, but from shared pain. Then came the drought. Rivers dried, crops failed, and trade routes broke down. Some whispered it was the ancestors' punishment for the blood spilled on sacred ground. Kumo, desperate to maintain control, increased taxes and took more from the poor. The same warriors who once fought for him now questioned his rule. Even the earth seemed to groan under his reign. The same land that once fed thousands now cracked in the heat. And while the people starved, Kumo sat behind gold walls, blaming shadows for the curse. The final blow came not from sword or drought, but from dreams. Kumo began to hear his brother's voice. In the silence of the night, in the reflection of water, in the rustling of leaves, Tariq's memory followed him. At first, he thought it was madness, then fear, then guilt. He couldn't sleep, couldn't trust anyone. His paranoia became unbearable. He tore down his own palace walls, trying to purge the ghost he could not touch. But ghosts don't haunt places, they haunt hearts. Eventually, the people stopped fearing Kumo, not because he grew gentler, but because he became irrelevant. The rebellion was no longer hidden. Stories of Tariq weren't whispered. They were shouted from mountaintops. Children no longer feared punishment. They proudly wore his symbol on their clothing. And Kumo, aging and hollow, could only watch as the kingdom he ruled slipped through his fingers. He had taken the throne, yes, but in doing so, he had given the people something greater, a martyr to unite behind. On his final day, Kumo stood in the same courtyard where he had struck his brother, alone. His once loyal generals were gone, his palace empty, the people outside chanting songs of Tariq's wisdom. He looked at the sky, and for a moment he wept, not for the crown, but for the bond he destroyed. No army remained, no legacy endured, just silence and regret. He died not as a king, but as a warning, etched forever in the soil of Zanbara, as the brother who broke the kingdom with his own hands. But the story didn't end there. Zanbara was reborn, not under a crown, but under community. The people elected councils, honored the wisdom of elders, and ruled not with a single voice, but many. The name of Tariq became more than memory. It became a movement. Schools bore his name. Stories of his peace lit the minds of future leaders. And every year, under the same tree where he once listened to stories as a boy, children gathered to hear how one brother's heart saved a nation, even in death. Even today, the tale of Tariq and Kumo lives on, retold in classrooms, whispered around fires, painted on walls from Ghana to Nigeria to Kenya. It reminds us that real strength isn't found in swords or crowns, but in the courage to choose peace when war seems easier. It teaches us that jealousy, once planted, can grow into ruin, but love, even when lost, can become something greater. The kingdom may have fallen, but the people rose, and in their rise, the legend found its place in history. So when someone asks you what truly destroys a kingdom, you might say war, famine, or greed. But now you know, it's the betrayal of trust between brothers. When jealousy takes root where love once grew, it's not just hearts that break, but entire nations. And when one chooses power over peace, they lose both. This isn't just the story of Zanbara. It's a mirror, a reminder, a legend not meant to entertain, but to awaken something deeper inside us all. What will we choose when our moment comes? Let this legend be your guide, a tale told not for sorrow, but for wisdom. If you've ever felt anger or envy rise, remember Kumo. And if you've ever been tempted to choose silence when you should speak for peace, remember Tariq. In our homes, our schools, our communities, we face the same test. May we choose to build, not destroy, to heal, not harm. And if we ever wear a crown, may it rest lightly, balanced by love, steadied by humility, and guided by the lessons of those who came before us. The kingdom of Zanbara may have faded from the maps, but its lessons remained rooted in the soil, passed from generation to generation, like seeds waiting to bloom. Historians would later say it wasn't a story of failure, but one of rebirth. The collapse of one throne gave rise to many voices, and it all began because one man's greed was outmatched by another's patience. What the sword tried to erase, memory revived, and what memory protected, history recorded, etched in rhythm, story, and song. Every year, in the hills near where Zanbara once stood, a festival blooms. It's not a celebration of war or crowns, but of peace. Dancers wear feathers, not armor. Musicians play flutes, not war horns. And in the center of the circle, storytellers recite the tale of two brothers, one who rose with the people and one who fell because he stood alone. They don't chant curses, but blessings, because forgiveness too is a form of strength. And what they remember, they protect. People say the land remembers, that even if we forget, the trees, the rivers, and the wind carry stories long after the voices are gone. And in Zanbara's fields, where battles once raged, flowers now grow wild. No more swords, no more thrones, just wind humming through tall grass, as if singing lullabies written by ancestors. Even now, travelers who pass through say they feel something in the air, a quiet reminder that even broken places can heal if given enough time and love. And maybe that's the lesson the ancestors left behind, that kingdoms made of gold can fall, but those built on love and memory endure. Power fades, statues crumble, But a story, that's forever. It moves through time like wind through the trees, dancing across generations. And just as it found you now, it will find someone else tomorrow. That's how Tariq lives on. Not as a ghost or a king, but as a choice we make every time we put peace before pride. So if you ever feel wronged, or cheated, or ignored, remember this story. You can let bitterness grow roots, like Kumo, or you can turn pain into peace, like Tariq. No one said it would be easy, but nothing worth doing ever is. What matters is what you leave behind, not in your hands, but in people's hearts. Let that be your kingdom, one built on truth, one that won't burn when the fires of pride come, one that echoes long after your voice goes silent. In our world today, we still see leaders who choose power over people. Nations rise and fall not just through conflict, but through decisions driven by ego. And yet, we also see communities rising through unity, healing through remembering. Stories like this aren't ancient, they're urgent. We're still writing them. Every time we forgive, listen, or lift someone instead of tearing them down, we rewrite the ending. That's why Zanbara matters. Because though the kingdom fell, its wisdom remains alive in every act of courage we choose. You don't need a crown to make change. You don't need royal blood to lead. All you need is a heart big enough to forgive and a voice brave enough to speak truth. Tariq had both, and in the end, he changed more by falling than Kumo ever did by winning. Remember that when you feel small. Legends aren't born. They're made in moments of choice. And the next moment, that belongs to you. What story will you choose to live? So, if this story touched something in you, don't let it fade. Share it. Tell someone. Pass it down like the ancestors passed it to us. Because what we keep alive in memory shapes what we create in reality. And if enough people remember, maybe one day the world won't need stories like this as warnings, but as reminders of how far we've come. Until then, hold the tale close. Let it live inside you. Let it guide your steps. And let it remind you that peace is a power all its own. And now, we pass the story to you. Carry it in your own voice. Add your perspective. Share it at gatherings, with family, in the quiet spaces where truth echoes loudest. This tale doesn't belong to any one place or people. It belongs to anyone who has loved, lost, and chosen peace. And maybe, just maybe, by keeping stories like this alive, we can rewrite our future, one where kingdoms rise, not on the backs of betrayal, but on the shoulders of those brave enough to forgive. Thank you for listening to this legend of Zanbara. If it stirred something in your heart, like the beat of a distant drum, then carry that rhythm with you. Let it remind you that stories are not just told, they're lived. And in every moment, we write new pages. Like Tariq, be a voice for peace. Like the people of Zanbara, rise after the fall. And like all great legends never forget, the past may whisper, but it's the future that listens. In the years since the fall of Zanbara, many have tried to twist the story, some making Kumo a victim, others painting Tariq as a fool. But the truth, like water, always finds its way. It flows through the cracks of silence and reaches those who thirst for it. That's why it's important to tell these tales honestly, not to villainize, but to understand. Because when we listen without judgment, we learn. And when we learn, we grow. That's how real kingdoms are built. The tale of Zanbara spread far beyond its borders. Griots from distant lands added their own rhythm to it. Drummers turned it into a song. Poets turned it into verse. Even strangers who had never set foot in the land felt connected to the story. Because at its core, it wasn't just about two brothers. It was about all of us, about the battles we fight within, and about the choice to lead with love, even when power beckons louder. One day, someone will hear this story for the first time, and it might change their life. Maybe it will remind them to forgive a brother, or to put down a sword they've carried in their heart, or to lead differently. That's the magic of legends. They meet us where we are and invite us to become something greater. Not because the past demands it, but because the future deserves it. You might wonder, what happened to Zanbara's lands? To the palace, the rivers, the walls? They faded, yes. But in another way, they became more real. Because every village that chose dialogue over war, every leader that listened instead of ruled, became a piece of Zanbara reborn. Its spirit spread like fire, gentle, illuminating, unstoppable. Kingdoms fall, but wisdom walks on. And as long as there are storytellers, Zanbara will live on. You are part of that now. By listening, by remembering, by sharing, you've become one of its guardians. You don't need armor. Your words are your shield. Your empathy is your strength. So, keep the story alive. Let it echo not just in your mind, but in your choices. Let your life be a legend worth passing down. The world may never know every detail of Tariq and Kumo's lives, but we know what matters. One chose power, one chose peace. And even though one died, it was his choice that lived. That's the heartbeat of the tale. That's why we tell it, not to mourn, but to model. Because every day, the world needs more Tariqs and fewer Kumo crowns. When children ask, what makes a king great? What will we say? Is it the gold he wears, or the burdens he carries? Is it how many lands he rules, or how many hearts he mends? The story of Zanbara helps us answer that. Greatness isn't taken, it's earned, and sometimes it's the ones who walk away from the crown who leave the deepest mark. We often think of legends as something far away. But what if you're living one now? What if your story, your choices, your struggles are part of something greater? Maybe we're all kings and queens in waiting. Maybe our crowns aren't made of metal, but of how we love, how we lead, how we forgive. And maybe, just maybe, your story will be told one day too. So we'll end where all great stories begin, with you. What will you do now? Will you carry this with you? Will you choose peace, even when pride tempts you? Will you be like Tariq and lead through kindness? This is more than history. It's your next step. Take it wisely. And when others follow your path, may they find something worth remembering. The kingdom was once divided by blood, but you can choose to unite through memory. The sword divided, but the story healed. So whether you whisper this to a child, sing it in your village, or simply carry it in your heart, it counts. Every act of remembrance is resistance, and every act of kindness is a crown. If you believe in peace more than pride, Tariq lives through you. If you choose to forgive when it hurts, Tariq lives through you. If you build when others destroy, then this legend is no longer ancient. It's alive, breathing through your actions. And one day, someone may tell your story with just as much reverence. If this story reached you, let it ripple. Share it in your way. Speak it, write it, dance it. Because legends that aren't passed down are like seeds never watered. They vanish. But when they're nurtured, they bloom. Just like Zanbara did, again and again through its people. So go, carry it, and bloom where you're planted. Zanbara wasn't just a place, it was a lesson. And now you know it. You carry it. Maybe your story will never be carved in stone. But if it's written in love, in truth, and in grace, it will outlast stone. It will echo in fireside stories, in lullabies, in the silence between beats of a drum. That's the power of a good story. It never really ends. Thank you for walking with us through the legend of Tariq and Kumo. May your days be wise, your choices noble, and your heart open. And when the time comes, may you rise not with pride, but with purpose. Until our next story, remember this. Crowns fade, but character doesn't. Goodbye for now, and carry the story well.